So a good study that was done a couple of years ago, other research and I were trying to figure out how many body language gestures appeared in an 18-minute TED Talk. So all TED Talks are 18 minutes. And as we broke down the film, slide by slide, we found that there appeared between 200 and 600 hand gestures in a TED Talk. And the TED Talks, though, that were the most popular and most often rewatched had between 400 and 600 hand gestures in them.
Welcome to the Cultivating Leaders Podcast, where we get inside the minds of leaders to harvest great ideas and lessons that help you grow as a difference maker in food and agriculture. I'm your host and curiosity captain, Nicole Ursig. Leadership isn't just about what you say, it's about how your body says it. Today's guest has made a career helping professionals master the unspoken side of communication. Jan Hargrave is a globally recognized body language and nonverbal communication expert whose books and keynote presentations have guided leaders, legal professionals, and major organizations to harness presence, interpret hidden signals, and lead with authenticity. Jan proves that the strongest message often comes from posture, gesture, and presence. Jan, welcome to the pod.
You did a great job. And you're right. It's posture, it's presence, it's how we look at other people. I'm thrilled to be with you. And, the leaders of AFA have always been dear to me. It's one of the only youth organizations I speak for. And sometimes they are better prepared than some of the grown up organizations I speak for. So I am very pleased to be with you and maybe share some information that can help, our leaders now, our future leaders, and how can they use nonverbal effectively if they're in a meeting, if they're in a presentation, even when they're on a virtual meeting. There's some secrets that we can teach with body language that can help them even there.
I love that. Well, I can't wait to get into it. So, Jan, how did you get started on this journey of learning about body language and becoming an expert in this
Yes,
space?
because it is kind of a strange title to say when people say to you, ask me like I might be in an Uber and someone will say, what do you do? And I'll say, well, I'm just a consultant. And they say, and then I say, I'm a speaker. And they say, what do you speak? So then I tell them that I'm a body language expert. So for me, I am originally from Louisiana. I live in Houston, Texas now, but I went to school at University of Louisiana Lafayette and LSU in Baton Rouge, majored in business, minored in psychology. But when I was in some graduate psychology courses, one particular, I had a professor who was into body language. So every few days he would walk in and he would look at one of us and say, I know what you're thinking, or I know what you're thinking. So one day he said it to me and I said, well, how can someone know what someone else is thinking? And so then he further explained about body language. And I guess when I heard him explain that, I just thought that this is really interesting that I could look at someone and look at the way they move their arms or their hands or their feet and kind of figure them out. And so from that moment on, and once they introduced it to us, I started doing research in that topic just for fun, just for interest. And in my first paper I ever did on the subject, I turned it into him and got a good grade. I mean, don't give Jan Hargrave a good grade and not expect her to deliver more. So from that moment on, all of my graduate research was in the field of body language. And at that time, I was working on my master's. So I had an education degree. So I was teaching high school in the day and I was going to night school and summer school to get my master's degree. So a lot of my research then was body language between teacher and student, body language between teacher and parent, body language between principal and teachers. So it kind of started that way. So then after I got my master's degree, my college asked me, gave me a teaching position. So I was teaching business courses in the day, business law, economics, because my major was business. But then they wanted to start a night school at my university, University of Louisiana Lafayette, and they wanted interesting topics. They wanted to really attract people to come there. So they go and they talk with each professor and say, what kind of research are you doing that relates to something that you're studying or that you want to be further interested in? And I was doing body language. So they said, well, why don't you write a curriculum for a course in nonverbal and we'll offer it to attorneys? So, we don't know how to say no. So I said, yes. And I wrote this curriculum. And so the curriculum contained things about, with attorneys, how to spot a liar, how to spot a truth teller, because attorneys want to pick 12 jurors who think like they think so that they can win the case. And while the attorney's so busy asking the possible jurors questions, they can't see what I see. So usually, if I'm working the courtroom and looking at maybe 100 jurors, I have a sheet that has boxes, and they're numbered 1 through 9, 1 through 8, 9 through 16. So if he is asking a question of number 32, I can write things about what number 32 is doing with their body language when the attorney's asking them questions. So then from there, to make a long story short, from there, some of these attorneys later on would start saying, well, why don't you come do this for our firm, or why don't you come speak on this for our a bar association? So it started off, I was just going to do a little talk on body language. Couldn't believe that people were interested, in listening to it. But the further it went on, the more that people were interested. And every few years I'd say, I need to leave that body language stuff alone. I am a college business professor. But then someone else would call, and then it went on and on. But I always loved learning about it to this day. If I can pick up an article in a magazine, or I hear an NFL game and they'll say, look at the team players' body language when they're going back to the huddle. Then, because years and years ago, 22 years ago, I think is when I started it, it was not too well received. People didn't even understand what it was. Then you started having big cases, started with O.J. Simpson's case, and there was a juror consultant there. So then the word body language expert kind of, came into being. And then from there, I didn't have to explain so much when I started telling people about, if you put your arms a certain way, it means a certain thing. So the old adage, actions speak louder than words, is so important, because in the research it says that 55% of our communication is nonverbal. 55%. So we walk into a room, we don't even say anything, but people start getting impressions of how trustful we are. Do they want to have a conversation with us? So 55 is nonverbal. 38% of our communication is voice inflection. So when we're talking, just when our voice goes up or down, that also, this enthusiasm, because if you're on the phone with someone and you don't hear them, you can kind of see if they're happy to
Oh,
speak with
yeah.
you, and you listen to that in their voice inflection. And then it does say that in a one-to-one conversation, only about 7% of our conversation is from the words that we say. So 55% is nonverbal, 38% is voice inflection, and 7% comes from the actual words that we say. I mean, it is an abundant amount, and people go through their entire life and never get a study or a training on nonverbal. And you can be effective as you want, but unless you have some kind of people skills, I think you'll always have a little bit of a shortcoming.
Yeah, it'll always be a challenge that you're trying to
Yeah,
overcome.
yeah,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, so you said so many things in there that have my brain running with a million questions, but maybe let's start with how do you said you can tell if you are someone who is signaling trust.
Right.
If I am in a professional space, how do I signal that I am someone
Okay.
who's a trustworthy or an open human?
Sure. And, well, when we have a conversation with the person, think about it, there are actually two conversations going on. There's a verbal conversation and there's a nonverbal conversation. People don't even realize there's a nonverbal conversation. And the verbal is like you and I talking, and verbal is everything we ever studied, or we're talking our opinion of things. But the nonverbal represents three things: it's our attitudes, it's our feelings, and our emotions. So the way that I greet you, the way that I shake your hand, the way that I give you eye contact, that is telling you about how I feel about you, what my emotions are of you, what my attitude is of you. So if you're first meeting someone, I would have to say you have to give them good eye contact. You must, you must, you must. It's a, it says that we're giving someone, when we're talking with them and they're really meaningful to us, that we should give them 60 to 70% of our eye contact while we're talking with them. Never that we would stare, because we'll look away. It's called gathering, so it's okay for your eyes to move when you're talking. We look to this side, get a thought. We look to this side, get a thought. Then we look right at the other person. But we can't have a whole conversation and never look at that individual. So we have to look at people. And our moms always said, "You look at me when I'm talking with you."
Yeah.
So those of us who are schooled, who are groomed, and who go through programs such as AFA, or learned, or go to college and have some kind of communication classes, know that young professionals have to look at other people when they're having conversations with them. So I would say that eye contact is important. The kind of handshake we give someone else is important. So what people just think, it's the handshake, but there's a lot of parts to the handshake. First of all, you must square your shoulders to that person. So when I'm shaking hands with you, my shoulders have to be exactly level with yours, because In body language, it says that we always point our bodies where our mind should go. So if I'm having a conversation with you and I'm pointing this way and just kind of talking with you on the
Yeah,
side,
it makes it feel like you're like cutting
yes.
me out
So
a little
even when we're shaking hands, or sometimes people shake your hands and they're like this, but their body is turned this way. So it's kind of like they're dismissing you. So then that's one thing I always tell people, make sure that you square your shoulders. Second thing is that when you're shaking someone's hand, the best kind of handshake is the vertical handshake, straight up and down. Because if I go to you and my hand is facing downward, that's a controlling effect. If my hand is facing downward when I shake your hand, it's as though I'm thinking whatever we're going to discuss, I want to have the final say so. If my hand is facing upward, this is submissiveness. So this is saying whatever you decide, I'm okay with that. So the actual best kind you see is vertical, exactly vertical. And the best way to shake someone's hand is that web touches web. And this is a web between my thumb and my pointer finger. And I'm sure that you'll have training in this, but and then I laugh when I train and I say that the 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 appropriate number of pumps in a handshake is three. People go 10 times one time, but it is three. And then another lesson that sometimes I will tell young people, if they feel that let's say someone who they're working with is dismissive to them, then I tell them when let's say you and I would be shaking hands and
bit.
we're this way, I tell them that you can take your left hand and you can hold that person right here. So let's say I'm shaking your hand and I'm holding on here.
Mhm.
This is called anchoring. If I do this while I'm shaking your hand, and it only gives an impression that says I'm fully present in this conversation. But what happens, it stops you, you give the person good eye contact, and you validate that person as an individual. Because so many times people shake your hand, then they kind of dismiss you and walk away. So if you're holding on to someone here, they will never let go of you till you're ready to let go of them. So, let's say in the business world, we have people who are 30, we have people who are 25, and sometimes they don't feel that they get the respect that maybe someone else would get. And that's just a minor thing that they could do that would say to them, look, I am a person, I'm worthy, I've gone to college, I've studied this. And sometimes you have to, I guess, stand your own ground. And that would be one simple way to do it. And when I talked about the handshakes, one going down and one going up, if you notice that someone comes to you and their hand is facing downward, you may not feel strong enough to turn the hand that it's level, but I want you to start noticing, oh, this person came to me and their hand is facing downward. So that means they probably want to control all of the work I do with them, all of the conversations I have with them. So when I teach nonverbal, I say, not only do you have to think about how to read someone else, you have to figure out how to read yourself.
That's exactly what I'm thinking through in my mind as you're talking about this. I'm like, "Oh, what am I doing?" Yeah.
But, you have to think when you enter that room, people are sizing you right then. In the first 2 to 7 seconds of someone seeing you, they have decided if they trust you or not.
Wow.
That's pretty quick. We always get training in action speak louder. I mean, first if you never get a second chance to make a good first impression. So that's what it is. Like even for me, because I think one of the things we had maybe talked about how do you enter a room and really, know that you're like on stage. Even for me, let's say I'm speaking at an event and there's a banquet and I have to sit at a eating table before I have to speak. Even then, when I'm eating, I'm still on stage.
Yeah.
You get it?
Yeah.
So then I'm still like, I have to be careful what I'm doing. So we always have to be aware of that. Then you can go to your room and kind of relax your shoulders and get your own self. But I think when we are in the presence of someone it's a professional setting, we have to continue to keep that in our mind.
Okay, so is body language this is a question I have. Is body language something you can control, or is it I feel like so much of it is happening without us realizing it, and like I'm signaling things or whatever I'm feeling emotionally is being expressed even though I don't notice it.
You said that, I think to myself, because sometimes people say, Jan, I don't think I'd want to be married to you. And, but my poor husband, if he moves a hand, I'm like, oh my gosh, I know what he's going to tell me. So let's think about what body language really is. A lot of it is intuitive, that we're kind of born with this, because even someone blind will do this for no. So
Oh.
everyone is born with some kind of intuitiveness in the field of nonverbal. And you meet someone, and if they don't sit right with you, something you just can't figure out what it
That
is.
something's off. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I want you to start using that intuition and know that you are correct in your feelings about that person. But, it's partly intuitive, but there's a lot of things you can learn about it. Like, what's a gesture of confidence? What's a gesture of nervousness? So when you said the word about how you get a feeling about someone, let me tell you the three C's of body language so that people who are listening to this can and want to learn more, they'll understand. So the first C of body language is the word context. So what I'm saying by context is that whenever you see a gesture, you have to think of what's the environment the gesture comes in. So let's say I see a woman on a cold winter night sitting on a park bench and her arms are tightly crossed this way. She's probably letting me know that she's cold. But if I see a business executive in a meeting room that's really warm and his arms are close this tightly, he's maybe telling me that he does not want to listen to what I'm saying. So that's why for every gesture, you must think, what is the context that I see that gesture appear in to get your true definition? Because learning body language is like learning another language. We speak English, we speak French, we speak Spanish. Why not learn to speak this thing called body language? So then the second C of body language is the word congruence. For someone to come across as honest and genuine and believable, their gestures must match the words that come out of their mouth. So if I would say to you, I like you so much, but my head goes into a no, that's what we call incongruence. So when someone starts doing that, that's when you start getting this feeling, I don't like this person. I don't trust them. So you meet a person in your life, or you probably know someone already in your life, and you're thinking like, I don't know why I just don't trust that person. And it is because their gestures are not matching the words that come out of their mouth. Because most of us, normal people, our gestures come out, and usually your gesture comes out about 1/5 of a second before the word comes out, if
Okay.
you're telling the truth. But if someone is lying, the gesture comes out a little bit after the word would come out. So we have context, we have congruence, and we have clusters. So when I talk about clusters and I'm teaching a class on this, I say, look, I'm going to teach you maybe 4 or 5 gestures that people do with their hands when they lie. And I'll teach you 4 or 5 gestures that people do with their hands when they're telling the truth. But I don't want you to just see one gesture of deception that someone gives you and say, oh, this person just lied to me. I want you to note it in your brain, but I want you to look for 2 or 3 more gestures of deception from that individual to make sure that your findings are correct. You understand? So we can't just see one gesture and say, oh, you just lied to me. Let them continue talking. Let them continue talking. Maybe you see a second gesture of deception, note it also. And then you see a third, you're pretty sure that this person is not telling you the truth.
Okay.
So that's kind of good to know. So context, congruence, and clusters. And the word congruence is like I see politicians speak. So let me just show you this. Putting my hands together here, when I put my fingertips together at chest level, this is a gesture of confidence. It's called steepling. So
Yeah.
whenever you see it done, it can be done at the chest. It can be done if you're doing it. You can do it with just the fingertips together. You can do the thumbs together. Even this would be
Okay.
even this, you see this, this is called goalpost steepling. See what I mean? I know you
Yeah.
see people do it a lot on television. So anytime you see that gesture, it has to do with something related to a level of uh, of, of
Confidence.
confidence that they are feeling.
I'm just going to pause, Jan, for anyone who is this. I know this is mainly an audio format, but she has her hands up. So, like, if you have your fingers together, pointing,
Like a praying,
praying,
but you're
yeah,
not touching the bottom of your hands together. It's just a
yeah,
finger, and they're soft. And you can never do like a spider, a crab. That's not good. They have to be really soft and stable and steady there. That's the gesture of the confidence.
yeah, and her hands up when she's saying goal posting, like it's still in front of her chest, but not like. Don't think like a touchdown. It's more more just like controlled in front of your chest.
And
Yep.
they're kind of at an angle. They're not straight, but they're kind of an angle facing each other. Getting back to the word with congruence and this gesture, I may see someone on stage on television speaking, and and people say, "Jan, do you ever not do it?" And I try to make them feel comfortable and say, "I probably don't do it all the time, but I'm probably watching people all the time."
Yeah.
I'm in an airport and I'm kind of watching people, so like I'll be watching TV and trying to figure out their body language. So most people know that this gesture means confidence, but I can tell when they're nervous and maybe not being genuine. They will say what they need to say, and then they'll stop talking, and then I'll see their hands go up in the steeple gesture. It's like, oh, I forgot to do the steeple gesture. So when the gesture does not come where it should come, that's what we call incongruence. And you catch it because it just won't sit well with you. I don't know exactly how to tell you, but it won't sit well with you that they did the gesture too delayed.
Yes. It's almost like our subconscious is reading it. We just always don't know how to interpret it.
You said the words exactly right. Because, like, when I'm looking at jurors, or when jurors are looking at a witness testify, because I work in the courtroom day after day after day, it's not anything that that witness will do specifically that turns off that juror. It's a combination of things, and the juror won't even understand why they don't like this person. And like you said, it's just a subconscious feeling that we get, but that subconscious feeling weighs a lot in our decision making in life.
So, Jan, if I am someone who struggles with nervousness or wants to come across as a better communicator, but I think that, well, like we talked about, some of this is like we're doing it no matter what, whether we're paying attention to it or not. Is the key to good body language changing some of your emotion, or is it knowing what body language to use to better communicate?
I think it would be knowing what body language would be used to better communicate. Because let's say I would be backstage and being introduced to go on stage, and I'm really nervous, and I'm, just moving my hands and just being nervous with all these distraction gestures. What I should do right then, I should stop what I'm doing that makes me look more nervous, and I should do a confidence gesture. And you know what happens when you display a confidence gesture? You become more confident. So there are gestures that people do. I mean, we work with prisoners we can even change their handwriting to change their behavior. So then if we could change someone's body language, it's like when school kids would wear, when they had picture taking day, they'd wear good clothes. They always behaved better. So it's like when we are in a room and we know that maybe we're kind of on display, and then we take a deep breath, and it shows through our body language, whether it's the pushing back of the shoulders, whether it's the way we use our hands.
So, what I hear you saying is if you move your body, you'll change your mind.
Right. You change
So,
the physiology of a person, can almost change their mind.
wow. Okay. So if I'm someone that struggles with nervousness, or if I'm in a tense meeting or something like that, I can do a motion of confidence or something.
So let me share this with you. There are gestures that are good to do, that make you come across as really confident. Then there are gestures that they're called displacement gestures, discomfort gestures, or pacifying gestures. So think what the word pacifying would be. If you have a baby who is crying and you give him a pacifier, it makes him feel better. So when we're nervous, we do pacifying gestures to make us feel better. So a pacifying gesture, but pacifying gestures don't make you look confident. They only make you look weaker. So these would be gestures that are done that don't need to be done to get our message across. So that would be where we're
Like almost, yeah, wringing your hands. Yeah.
pulling pieces of imaginary lint while we're talking to someone is a displacement gesture. Scratching the neck, and usually people do it 5 times, is a displacement gesture. Touching the front of the neck is almost feel as though you feel you're being strangled. Touching the back of the neck when you're speaking is a sign of frustration. Playing with hair too much,
Oh, I do. I definitely do that when I,
bottle of water, and they unscrew the bottle, and then they take a sip, and they screw it back, and then they talk, and they do it again. That's a displacement, because those are distractions from what you're actually saying. They don't count. They don't count. So if I'm watching someone speak and they do 10 pacifying gestures and one confidence gesture, I know that they're pretty nervous. So as much as you can, when you see yourself doing one of those things that you shouldn't do, maybe wringing the hands, uh, fooling with your clothing too much, you just have to stop for a second, place your hands if you want on your lap, calm your own self down. Because when you're nervous, your hands are trying to reach to your brain, because that's where you're nervous, and they're trying to calm you down. So people will end up scratching the face, holding the ear. But as much as you can, just bring your hands together. And even if, and I'm taking my thumb and I'm touching my middle finger here. So anytime you get the feeling that you're holding your own hand, you feel a little bit more confident. Because when you were in first grade and your teacher perhaps scolded you, you went at recess, you held someone's hand, it made you feel better. So now we're big people. We cannot just go hold someone else's hand. So we hold our own hand, whether you're holding it this way and an audience doesn't even know what I'm doing when I'm doing this, or I'm casually holding it this way. But I'm holding my hand saying, it's okay, girl, you make it. So when you feel that you're getting to where you're doing too many of them, I know it's kind of like you have to work on your own mind, is that you have to stop doing it and do something calming, maybe put one hand with another. So I know people, so some gestures that would be confidence gestures would be, even if I clasp my hands together with all my fingers together, but tight. Let's say my hands are real tight, my fingers are woven. That's discomfort. That's displacement. Softer, and my thumbs are in a steeple. That's okay to do. When people are speaking, you see what I'm doing with my hands. I'm holding onto an imaginary basketball here. This is a great gesture when someone's telling you something that they want you to approve of. So it's as if I'm thinking to myself, I have this information in the ball of my hands. I'm holding on to imaginary basketball now. And then I kind of lean towards you and kind of put my hands this way. It's almost as though I'm saying, I have this information in the ball of my hands. I will gladly pass it on to you. Hopefully, you digest it and then you give me back that ball. So it's like, I want to get you on my team.
It almost feels like you're giving me a gift.
So I think my hands are cupped, a little bit cupped when I'm doing that, and my fingers are kind of wide apart. When my fingers are straight, about 14 inches apart, and my fingers are straight and kind of wide, this is a firmness gesture. This is kind of a forcefulness gesture. This gesture is typically done when you're trying to get someone's attention. So when you're trying to say, I think it's time that we go on or we move on, your hands would be this way. If you're trying to work with them, perhaps your hands are more cupped. And a quick way to get a read on you or get a read on someone else, a shorthand method to body language is that think of hands and fingers when you're watching someone else speak like windows on a home. So when the weather is nice and sunny, probably your windows are open and a breeze is coming through. When someone is comfortable and confident, that there's big spacing between their fingers when they're talking. When the weather is gloomy, probably your windows are closed real tight. So when someone's nervous and upset, their hands are closed and fingers are closed real tight. It's that simple. So when you're watching someone speak, just giving even a book report, even if someone's in school, and we're nervous doing that. I was even nervous in high school doing that. So think about it. And sometimes if you will just put spacing between your fingers while speaking, you can become confident.
It's amazing, Jan. Yeah, as we're doing this and I'm like mimicking you, I can feel like my emotions changing.
Kind of feel good to do it instead of going like this, when you're talking and being real tight. So a good study that was done a couple of years ago, other research and I were trying to figure out how many body language gestures appeared in an 18-minute TED Talk. So all TED Talks are 18 minutes. And as we broke down the film, slide by slide, we found that there appeared between 200 and 600 hand gestures in a TED Talk. And the TED Talks, though, that were the most popular and most often rewatched had between 400 and 600 hand gestures in them. So a good TED Talk. I mean, don't you see something that
Oh,
you're like,
yes.
and they're good because the person is using their body language effectively. So they're not doing any displacement gesture. They're only doing gestures that help to get their message across or get that audience to really take in what they're saying. But isn't that a good example so that people understand you cannot be effective when you're talking with people if you use no hand gestures at all? You have to because it makes you come alive. So in relation to that, even when someone's on a virtual call,
I was just about to ask this, Jan. How do we do this in a
it's
virtual
that people
setting? Yeah.
trust you faster when they can see some kind of non-threatening hand motion from you when they first greet you. So if I go to you and my hand is kind of facing upwards, that's non-threatening. If I go to you and my hands are facing downward, that is threatening in a sense, you see? Because police officers say, show me your hands, because they want to feel, oh, this person is safe and I can work with them. So even in business, when we're greeting someone, we have to show them some kind of non-threatening hand motion, whether it's the lifting of the hands, because when your hands are upwards, it says, I accept you, I like you. Because when you go to hug someone, look, they see the insides of your palms. So whenever someone sees the insides of your palms, they do not feel threatened.
What if I'm like more like this? Okay, so if I do a stop, then not. But if I have my hands more open and my arms.
Your hands facing upwards are accepting, downward facing palms are controlling. It's not that one's better than the other. Both need to be used every time you talk. So when you're speaking about something that you feel strongly about and it's serious, it's okay to talk and your hands are kind of facing downward. If you're trying to bring someone into the way that you feel and think, then your hands are kind of facing upwards, kind of at a 45-degree angle, and they can see your palms. So with that in mind, think of the virtual call. It works the same way. For someone to trust you, they will have to see your hands a little bit when you're speaking. Never crazy hands, but I'll show you how you can use them effectively. Anytime you have to number a sentence, show me that you're numbering the sentence. Say, well, number one, let's talk about this. And then number two, let's talk about this. And then put your hands out of that screen. If you need to show me a size, say it was really big, and then put your hands out of the screen. So every now and then, so that I can see you as an individual, you'll have to show me some kind of hand motion, and then put them away. And even if the screen shows you from the chest up, because if I'm just looking at your face, I don't feel you. When I'm looking at you from chest up and I can see a hand motion from you, I know that I'm having a conversation with a person and not just a talking head.
Yeah.
So yeah. So one of the things that I tell people is never touch your face. But in a virtual call, I think that the only time I allow, because I still teach at the University of Houston, and when I'm teaching a class, I say never touch your face if you are speaking, but if you are listening, it would be okay for you. Let me show you this gesture here. I'm taking my right hand and I'm simply rubbing back and forth underneath my chin. This is an evaluation gesture. So men evaluate and they'll rub the chin back and forth. When a lady evaluates, she usually points her pointer finger up and puts it against her chin and kind of slightly tilts the head. This is called critically evaluating. Holding the whole head in the hand, this is boredom. You never want to see someone do that. But let's say you and I are on a virtual call and you're talking, and it would be okay if I did this. If I rub my chin, it'd be that I'm evaluating what you're saying, or if I did this. So anytime really you touch your chin, you are evaluating. Whether you're pulling on your chin this way, just slightly pulling on the chin some way, or rubbing underneath the chin with the upper part of your hand. Anytime you touch your chin when someone else is speaking, you are evaluating. So while someone else is talking, you have to give them gestures to encourage them, to let them know that you're listening. And the two big ones are head nods and a head tilt. So let me explain that. So a head nod, we must. Uh, a head nod is just that I am almost bowing down to your knowledge. And also, it's an encouragement gesture. If someone's talking and you're just sitting there with no expression or no head nod, it's like no one's getting a response to. So if your head is nodding, it's like, okay, I agree with you, I disagree with you. And there's a difference in two head nods and three head nods. So when we agree, we go twice. We're like, oh, uh-huh, uh-huh. When we're ready for someone else to shut up, we go three times. So if I'm going, we're like, okay, it's time for me to talk now. It's kind of like that when we go three times.
So is that when head nodding can get excessive, of like
Yeah, yeah,
someone is
it's
just like
yeah,
bobbleheading
yeah,
and they're
yeah.
like, okay, get done.
So normally, but a head nod is so encouraging to the person speaking.
Okay.
On a virtual, let's say I'm teaching a class on a virtual screen, I don't get to hear, nobody else is talking but me. So if I can see some class members shaking their head, I'm like, oh, okay, I must be doing okay today. So we must do that. It's an encouragement gesture, an acknowledgement gesture. And the other thing too, you see, when I'm talking with you, your head is slightly tilted to one side. Head tilts show interest.
I didn't even notice that I was doing that, but you're right. When you said that, I'm like, yep, my head is tilted.
When someone's not interested in something, their head is straight up and down. It's like, when is this thing going to be over? But if you're interested, the head kind of tilts, and the background behind that, because when I teach a gesture, I just don't like to say it. I want to give you the background. You see, the area of your neck that you expose when you tilt your head, that's really vulnerable. If someone hit you here, they could really cause you a lot of damage. So you would never tilt your head if you were not comfortable with whoever was speaking with you. Because if you're not comfortable with them, you're going to be straight up this way. But if you're comfortable, you're like, oh, I can kind of relax. So the old saying was that, it was always thought that women were better listeners than men, but women are not better listeners than men. It's only that women give more nonverbals when they're listening. So women nod, women smile. Men more so stay in a neutral position when they're listening. So if someone has a meeting with the man, someone may say at the end of the day, well, how did the meeting go? She'll say, I don't know. He never gave me any nonverbals. So if I'm training guys, I say, guys, look, you can nod every now and then. And then I tell women we can't nod all day long, because then they'll think that we agree with everything that they're saying.
Oh, yeah, amen. Okay.
I think for listeners to know that when they're having a conversation, be human. Let me see you. Let me see your hands, because that's how your sweet personality comes out, is by seeing a head nod from you, by seeing some of your hand gestures. Because when you're with your friends and you're comfortable, you probably use a lot of hand gestures. So even when you're in a business setting, don't let it hinder you. Use some of your hand gestures that are comforting to you, so that you're looking as comfortable as yours as if you're having a conversation with friends.
So Jan, is there professional and unprofessional body language?
So unprofessional body language would have to be slouching. The moment you said that, it made me think of slouching.
Okay.
Because so unprofessional would have to be slouching, and when we have our arms crossed in front of our bodies, if you're trying this at home and you cross your arms in front of your bodies, I want you to notice that your shoulders kind of start slooping. So when your shoulders start slouching, you look unprepared to others. And when you make yourself smaller, you don't look as powerful as when you make yourself larger. So let me kind of explain that. We say that the physical space you need when you're sitting or standing dictates to others how much power you have. And if we needed something to correspond to that, think of if you saw three limousines driving down the highway. Three limousines are going by each other or together, and one's much bigger than the other two. Where do you naturally think the most important person is? It's in the largest of the three. So when we get into meeting rooms, the way that we sit, the way that we position all of our books dictates to others how powerful we feel when we're sitting there. So we call it non-confrontational when we stay small. When we stay small, we cross our arms and we cross our legs. So look how we stay. If I'm crossing all of that right now, we stay in this little bitty bubble. And so when we're that small, we look very weak to others, and they say, "Oh, I can get my way with this one," and pounce upon them. So when I'm guiding young ladies, I tell them when you get into the meeting room, you cannot stay that little. You spread your arms out a bit. You make your gestures a little bit bigger just to kind of give the aura
Yeah.
that you're taking up a little bit more space than you normally do. And that's hard for young ladies to do because
Oh, yeah.
sometimes they're very timid. But, look what I'm doing now. So, just as an example, I
Yeah.
wanted to do it to show you. I just have one of my arms kind of on the back of my chair. I probably wouldn't stay this way too long because it looks a little bit too aggressive. But I bring my arm back and then maybe bring it when I'm emphasizing another point, just to give. Because I think of Oprah when Oprah would interview people. She never interviewed people with her arms crossed in front of her body. She interviewed them more than likely with her hand on the back of her chair, and she was like talking. See how much bigger I look here? Because to begin with, women are a little bit, tinier, and they're leading meetings where you have tall men in there. And so sometimes to make yourself, because in body language, you make yourself appear larger by using a little bit of a bigger gesture. And maybe when your hands come out, because on stage, I see myself when I'm speaking and my gestures are kind of big. And then I'll get off stage and someone says they want to take a picture with me and they'll say, "Wow, I didn't realize you were this short or tiny." But on stage, I don't appear tiny because my gesture, even when a lady does this, I'm putting my hands on my hips. This is an assertive gesture. You don't want to do it for too long because then the people will say you're too aggressive. But, when your hands are, you can put one on a hip and just talk a little bit, but it just gives you that aura that I'm bigger than I am, and then bring your hands down. So
So, what if you are someone who has been given feedback that you're intimidating or hard to approach or something like that in the workplace? What type of body language tips would you give someone like that?
I think when people tell others that, it may be more so their facial expression makes them, it may not be the body language. Because when you said that, that's the first thing that came to my mind. Maybe it's something in their facial expressions that that make you just say, this person looks irritated. So maybe they'll have to soften their facial expression. I don't know how to tell them that,
Mhm.
but we have to think that people learn in various ways. People who are kinesthetic learners, or those who have to move around when they're listening to us, so they look not interested in what we're saying. So, like I was speaking in Washington D.C. yesterday, and I had an attorney in that room, and when I first met her, because I went around, it was at a U-shaped table, and I just noticed something was a little off, that she couldn't look at me straight in the eye, but I didn't think that much of it. And then when I was presenting to, I noticed she was looking at her paper. But then after me, and you know what? She came to talk to me to tell me that she is like a divergent learner, that she has to look at other things. She cannot just sit still when she's listening. So then, it kind of took me off guard, but I'm glad she came and addressed that with me. Then, because at first I was thinking maybe she's not interested in what I'm saying, but it was only because her learning style is different from maybe you or I. So there's visual learners, there's auditory learners, and there's kinesthetic learners. So kinesthetic learners are those who have to move around or won't give us the correct, we think, facial expression that we should get. So then if someone thinks they come across as too angry, I think it might be in their facial expressions they're giving to people. But if they notice that they're or maybe they're always with their arms crossed when they're listening to someone. Because if someone's always this way and they're listening to me, I would think, well, why don't they uncross their arms?
Yeah.
But two, for people who are learning this, if you get negative gestures from an individual, let's say you and I would be discussing something for a long time and your arms would be crossed, it would be my job to get you to uncross. But I could get you to uncross by simply trying to hand something to you, maybe
Okay.
give you a cup of coffee or say, let's look at this item that I sent to you last week. So when you have to reach from me and get the item, you
You're
have to
gonna.
uncross your arms. So if we can get them to move from a negative position to a positive one, we have started to make some kind of headway into what they're, to loosen them up. Or I think of this. So right now, what I'm doing, I have my hands behind my head, and men will sit this way in a business
In a
meeting.
meeting.
This is a really strong gesture of confidence, but it is way too strong to use in a meeting room of less than 5 people. It is reminiscent of someone sitting on his easy chair at home saying, I'm the king of the castle. So if I was being interviewed and someone sat this way, I would have to say to myself, I got to get them away from that seating arrangement. So again, I would say, let's pick up that document. Why don't we pick up that document? Even if it's a virtual call and they're doing this, say, can you download the document I sent you this week?
Yeah.
Anything to get them to bring their arms down because, if their arms are down and they look more receptive, because the hands behind the head is equivalent to someone having his feet up on his desk while he's talking with you. So wouldn't we hate to be interviewed by someone who had his feet up on his desk, his hands behind his
Yeah, I
head?
would feel like you are lower than me.
Nobody does that now. One time, to give you this story, I was being interviewed by a company who wanted to hire me. I think it was Bank of America, and it was 2 men. It was just a phone call, it wasn't a virtual call, and one of the guys on the phone call, I knew because he had heard me before, so he had told his bigger boss that he needed to hire me. So it was a conference call of the friend, and I can't remember his name, and the big boss and me. So then I could tell on the call that the big boss was not too sold on having me come in there and speak about body language. He kept saying, "What do you think? How do you think it's gonna benefit my people?" I felt like he was attacking me in a sense, but I just thought, Jan, just hold on to your own and just push through this. And I just thought to myself, well, it's worked with all other organizations, so I don't see why it would not, work with yours. So, I was kind about it. So then, just before he hung up, I had this wild idea in my mind. I don't know how I can even tell you how y'all are sitting without me seeing y'all right now. So he said, girl, if you can do that, you got the job. So then I started by saying, I talked about my friend first. I said, I know that my friend is leaning forward. He probably has his friend, like this. He said, Jan, you got that right. And then to the big boss, I said, you're probably sitting at your desk and your hands are behind your head. He said, you know what? You got the job. Because I knew that he was sitting in a position that he felt
Of
dominant.
power,
Yeah.
yes.
So yeah, and I got that job. And he became my friend for life.
Okay, so now I think we've got to talk about tone because so
Okay.
much of this we talked, okay, there's hand gestures and the way we hold our bodies, but I can't remember what you said at the beginning. So much of
In vocal tone, 55% is nonverbal, 38% is vocal tone.
Okay.
So when we're speaking, the vocal tone that is probably the most powerful to others is a little bit lower than like it should come out on your out breath. If I would say to you, "Hi, I'm Jan," instead of saying, "Hi, I'm Jan." So it should be on the lower range that you have. So women have about 5 vocal tones, men have 3.
Oh.
So and when we're in the courtroom, we're trying to see if someone's being deceptive with us. The higher their vocal tone is, the more likely they are being deceptive. So when people are nervous and maybe lying to us, the vocal tone's real high. When people are afraid, the vocal tone is real low. So you're trying to look for a tone that's kind of in between. So and that's hard to change is a vocal tone. Sometimes you have to take a speech class and you have to make them teach you how to breathe. Because
Okay.
other than that, I cannot help someone change their own tone. But the thing that you have to think about to help yourself get the right vocal tone is to calm yourself down. So and that's hard.
It's so hard,
I
yeah.
know because even, to this day, even when I get introduced to speak, Do you know that I still kind of get nervous behind the scenes? But I guess that's still good because then if you don't get a little bit nervous, you're not as good as you once were.
Yeah.
So and I always pray this is going to be good. This, so that's I think it's okay that at first maybe we start and then once we get comfortable and we breathe, and everybody understands that anyone is nervous, getting in front of an audience to speak or
Yeah.
coming into an interview, and your interviewers, if they're seasoned, they'll know that a young person coming in for an interview is bound to be a little bit
Yeah.
nervous. But the thing you have to do, and you're doing it so well right now, is hold your one hand and calm yourself down by holding one hand, even doing a steeple gesture while you're sitting there, like doing a steeple. I haven't even see my hands, but I know that they're there in that steeple gesture, and I know that that's a sign of confidence. So that would stabilize me when I'm talking, instead of just going crazy, with your hand motions. Because the crazier your hand motions are, the probably the higher your vocal tone will be. Plus, let me also share this with you. Across our body, there are different zones of communication. So let's say when my hands are near between my shoulders and chest, that's called the passion zone. So if I'm talking, it means I'm really excited about what I'm saying. At your waist, this is called the truth, TRUTH zone, because that think of your navel. Your navel is the center part of your body. So it's like the navel center. So when someone's telling the truth, more than likely their hands are going to be
Coming from
gesturing at
here.
the waist. If they're standing up, and when you're sitting down, it's pretty hard to do that.
Yeah.
Underneath the waist level, it's called the grotesque zone. So you don't want too much gesture there. Above your head is like the thought zone, or the I can't remember what these zones are, because most people talk about in this zone here, the passion zone and the
Yeah.
waist zone. And the way that you can see this, if you're watching the news at night, you can see that when someone's telling a story that's really serious, the gestures are going to be at the waist. When the weatherman is talking, his gestures are at his chest because he wants to keep you excited about the same thing he told you yesterday.
Yeah.
You get it?
Yes.
And the human eye loves symmetry. So if I'm talking with you, your eyes like it if my gestures are in the same zone when I'm talking. Because if I would talk and I have one hand in the passion zone and one hand in the truth zone, I look kind of crazy. You see what's going on here?
Yeah.
It's too wild. So you want to kind of keep your hands in the same zone as you're speaking. You know that
Absolutely.
when you're talking, you're doing a book report, or you're presenting, or you're at giving a business meeting, that when you're doing it, that your hands are in the same zone.
Yeah. Yeah. Because even thinking about like being diagonal like
Yeah,
this
like
is,
this.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the thing that I wanted to mention is that when you talk about vocal tones, is that the higher your hands go, the higher your voice gets.
Okay.
So if you're trying to calm yourself down, put your hands in a lower zone. That's the secret right there, I guess, to getting the right zone.
Yeah. To changing your tone is where you have your
Because if
gestures.
I get
That's
excited, look, my voice is gonna get higher, my hands are gonna get higher. If I wanna calm myself down, my hands need to get lower, and then that way it lowers my voice a bit. Will you be trying all these things when you get home?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, now I'm gonna be analyzing people on Zoom. Honestly, Jan, I'm sitting here and thinking about my own coworkers and thinking like, oh, like why are they come up because I will say like I work virtually from home and I will say it is so interesting to meet my coworkers in person or spend time with them in person because oftentimes the way they come across on a screen and then meeting them in person is very different. And I'll be honest, the passionate levels of conflict or like heated topics, it completely changes the way that we have those conversations versus virtual versus in person. Yes.
Just think before we had virtual and it was just a telephone,
Yeah.
and we had to get like someone would call me for a speech, and so I'd have to get a visual of, did I think this person was brunette? Did I think they were tall? And then I'd meet them at the airport and they looked totally different, when they came to pick me up then.
Then you had in your mind.
So just think, at least with virtual, you can kind of get an idea of them.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, we call it profiling in the courtroom when we're trying to figure. So we profile people to this day, probably, if we never see them on a virtual call, we kind of profile them and think that they have dark hair, they have light hair, they're tall.
Yeah. So if I'm in a virtual setting and I'm someone that doesn't like to turn on my camera, does that make me a
Oh, yeah,
okay?
you need to turn on the camera. Yeah. Yeah. Because think about the poor speaker having to deliver a message. Uh, we are looking at a little bitty dot. If I'm teaching a class virtually, I'm just looking at a dot on my computer. And during COVID, I taught classes on effective nonverbal communication during virtual conversations. but it would make me so nervous to teach the doggone class because and I talked to other speakers, you know what it was that was making us so nervous? We had to put all of our energies into a little bitty
Yeah,
camera.
little, yeah.
On stage, I get to feed off of this person's face or this person's face. So then your mind is just trying to zero in right there because we know that when we look at the camera, people feel that we are looking in their eyes.
Okay, so if I want to make eye contact with someone, I need to look at that camera.
You have to look at the camera. So when I'm speaking, I would look at the camera. When they're speaking, I more so will look at the screen.
Mhm.
So, yeah, to make the person think that you're looking right at them, you'd have to look at the camera. So, when I would be teaching or train, I remember my first training during COVID was 400 attorneys from Alabama having a
Wow.
conference. So, here I was teaching 400 attorneys for about an hour and a half on nonverbal communication, where I am nervous at the bottom, but trying to act like I'm really confident, peeking at that little camera for a whole hour and not seeing any of their faces
Mhm.
because all their cameras were turned off. It's a very stressful thing on the brain. So that's why I'm saying if you can put on your camera while someone else is speaking, do so because it kind of gives them something to feedback on, to look to see if you're nodding, to look and see if you're agreeing, if your head is tilted, what are you doing? Or you're just sitting like this with your whole head in your hand.
Yes, yes. I think sometimes too it can send a signal of disengagement of like, okay, I'm here but not really here.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. It's like they don't value you and the information that you're wanting to teach them. That's
Yes.
kind of how I feel if someone turns a camera off.
I would agree with that completely. Well, Jan, this has been so fun. Let's go into our rapid fire segment.
Okay.
So, we're going to try to do short answers, and I will try not to ask follow up questions. That's the challenge. Okay. What is one book, video, or resource you recommend on body language?
So, I my website is janhargrave.com. So on my website, I have 5 books. And the first book is Let Me See Your Body Talk. So that's body language job interview, body language presentation skills, body language gender differences. My second book is Judge the Jury. That's what we use in the courtroom, how to spot liars or truth tellers. My third book is Free Way of Love, and that's dating
Oh.
gestures. Ooh, that might be interesting. My fourth book is Strictly Business Body Language. That's just negotiation. I think my fourth book is the best written one because by the time you write 4 books, then you understand how to write a book. But what I did in book 4, I put a lot of pictures of how people sit in business meetings. Then underneath there, I explain what the person is thinking. So that's why it's easy to read. And what I did in that book, every chapter is like chapter 1 is just about hand motions. Chapter 2 is just about arm motions. Chapter 3 is just about leg motions. Or so you can read a chapter and kind of get it done. And then the last chapter is the last book is Poker Face, into the body language of poker players. Not that
Ooh.
I'm a gambler, but I was asked to write a book to help gamblers to win. I know, and there was a woman who placed 7th in the Women's World Series of Poker who asked me to research this with her, and so she proofread the book because I don't know everything about poker, but she helped me with all the terms. And then also my website, I have a great online course. It's called Mastering Business Body Language. It's 13 modules, and it's excellent. It's me teaching it. It's everything there is to know about mastering body language, and no matter what kind of setting you have. So I do recommend those my books, but there's a lot of other. Julius Fast is an old author on body language. Navarro is also, he was an FBI agent who also speaks on body language. He's one of my mentors. So we as body language experts, we're only about 11 of us in the United States who do this, who've been doing it for years. We have new people we hopefully are getting into the field, but there's not too many people who do it.
Absolutely. So, who is a public figure you think absolutely nails body language?
You know what? Well, I thought about that and I said, I don't want to hit a politician because that's too going one way or another. So, you know who I would have listed? Taylor Swift. And I want you to think, even when she's walking into a restaurant, her shoulders are back. She has a good gait. She carries her purse in a really ladylike manner, and her head is straight up. So, if I don't want to get political because I don't want to touch politics, but if we want to just get someone for fun who I think has good body language, even when she poses for a picture.
Yeah.
She really does. She's kind of stately is what it is. And she's tall. Every now and then she may hunch her shoulder a little bit, and I think it's maybe because she's speaking to someone who's shorter than her, but she usually has really good body language.
I love that. Another reason I like Taylor Swift. Uh, if you could teach every young ag professional one physical communication skill, what would it be?
It would have to be eye contact and facial expressions. I mean, it's got to be that because what else could it be? I think that would be the thing. And to be genuine, to be genuine, because if you're not genuine, people will figure you out and they will not like you. So you have everybody has by themselves have a lot of own personal qualities that are good. So address the ones that are good and work and use those when you're having conversations with other people.
I love that. We didn't talk about it. Tell me about the pink glasses that you give out when you speak.
Got that. Yeah, my pink glasses.
Yes.
Look, I give these away and they have when I'm teaching a class, all my students wear these pink glasses. People love these pink glasses.
Yes.
So I wear pink glasses, but I have to wear pink glasses to see. So I was doing a Tony Robbins event a few years ago. I am a trainer for Tony. I'm his closing speaker at his leadership meeting every year. And so I thought, what could I give to these people? Because they always like a giveaway. And I thought, well, let me just get some pink glasses and give to them, but I didn't have pink glasses. Now these are made with my name on it. These are made in China. But I went to a party center and I bought some breast cancer awareness glasses because they look just like this, but they had the X's of breast cancer awareness. So my husband and I popped out the lenses of 1,000 frames. Oh my gosh, and brought them with us. And so when we were there, I mean, people were dying for these glasses. We had 1,000 people with pink glasses. So then after that, I did it for another speech. And then my web designer said, Jan, that's too much work. Let us order them for you because see my name and websites on this side. And so now I carry them with me. I can be at an airport and I want better service. They'll say, I like your glass. I'll say, you want a pair? And I give them a pair and they're like, they put me in first class. They give me a good hotel room.
They're so cute. Yes.
So aren't they?
Cute.
Even older men will get these glasses and wear them.
Mhm.
So then and even my business card has my pink glasses on it, but it's a kind of a good little trademark for me. So then I told this to the lady who had sold me these glasses. These are from Belgium. So since I'm wearing these glasses, I had to buy every frame of this frame left in the world.
Oh,
We
wow.
got some from Belgium, we got some, so I have like four more of these frames at home. Because let's say if I wear these for 2 years, they'll kind of start fading. Then you don't have to take the lenses and put them in a new frame. So I'll probably wear these till I pass away. This frame
Mhm.
style.
It does. It's very cute. Well, and I like it because it's fun, Jan, because the way that you are seeing the world is what you are teaching other people. So see the world like Jan.
It was quick. It was just accidental that I thought what would be relative that somebody could relate to me, and then people get them, they put them on their desk, and then every time they see them, they oh, there's Jan.
It's a good reminder too to be thoughtful about body language and how other people are seeing us. Yes. Okay, Jan, we have got to wrap it up because we've got to get you to your speaking slot. But one last question. We always love to ask our guests for hot takes. So, bold, unconventional opinions. So, what is a bold or unconventional opinion that you have about leadership or I'm going to say even body language communication?
You're kind of stumping me, girl. Okay, let me see. What's a bold opinion that I would have? A hot take would be to get others to see you seriously and see your knowledge because I think that knowledge is what's going to get you ahead of other people. It's not going to be your personality. It's not going to be your likability. It's going to be how much you know and how you relate that information to other people. Are you confident when you deliver it? I mean, you have to be personal. That's a not. But I say the more education you can get, the more learning you can get, the more reading you can get, the more you can follow the mentors who have done this path before you and learn from that and take that for yourself, then I think that you cannot stop someone if they continue learning all their lives. And someone even my age, I love to learn, love to learn. And then another thing that I did not mention to everyone maybe listening is that I am a farm girl.
I did not know that, Jan.
Yes, I'm from Louisiana with my dad was a rice farmer. So daddy was a rice farmer and soybean farmer all my life. So I grew up on a farm. And once my parents passed away, I inherited that farm. I am a farmer.
We love that, Jan.
So then I continued with the man who planted the rice for daddy, still plants the rice for me. And so now when they finish the rice season, we do crawfish. So I'm a crawfish queen.
Oh, I love
So
that.
that's why I appreciate AFA. I appreciate agriculture because that was what made a living for us. And so we understood if a hurricane came and it knocked down the rice fields, that our yield was not going to be as good. So, you cannot, I think agriculture, farming is the part of life that makes the world go round. So that's why I value it.
Well, thank you so much, Jan, for teaching and helping our listeners learn, and for being such a pillar part of our conference at AFA. It has been so wonderful to get to know you and talk to you. Just wrapping it up, because at AFA, we're all about building bridges and connecting people. Where can listeners connect more with you?
Well, on LinkedIn, they can definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn because I like to see what happens to the leaders who attend these conferences, and I like to see all the growth they have. I even people who I spoke for years and years ago in track two at AFA now run their own businesses. I have a young man in Oklahoma who ran a company called Remington who heard me first here. So I like to see the progress that everyone makes. So that way, I'm on Instagram. I don't post that much, but at least they can follow me and let me see what they're doing. But I think LinkedIn now is the strongest method for me to see what they're doing, how they're progressing, how they're working in this world, and they can see what I'm doing too.
Absolutely. Well, find Jan on LinkedIn. Thank you so much, Jan, for joining us on the Cultivating Leaders podcast. Thanks for listening to the Cultivating Leaders podcast, brought to you by Agriculture Future of America. If you've been here before, you know we value feedback as a gift. Please leave us a review and let us know how we're doing.